You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network on the landofisrael.com, where I am back in the saddle. Excited about being back in Israel again, doing this show after 3 exciting weeks on the road that took me all over. Over the last 3 weeks, I have met wonderful people in Austin, Texas, in Chicago, in Lake Tahoe, in Las Vegas, in San Diego, in Irvine, in Santa Barbara, Agora Hills, in Los Angeles, in Philadelphia, and Allentown, Pennsylvania, Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, Bala Cynwyd, I guess that's separate, Marion Station, Pennsylvania, up and down New Jersey, all the way from Newark, Morristown, Homedale, Manalapan, all the way down to Ventnor, near Atlantic City, and also Pensacola, Florida, Montgomery, Alabama, and in Canada, in Winnipeg. What a fun 3 weeks it was. Exhausting, though. Ladies and gentlemen, traveling in America is not as fun as it used to be. Having to wake up at 3:30 to catch an Uber and get to an airport an hour and a half in advance of a flight because you're in a busy airport, and then be told right when you get there, actually, your flight has been delayed, and you could have stayed in your bed for another couple hours. I never thought I could fall asleep in an airport. I've actually become quite good at it. As long as you have an alarm, it's okay, even if it looks funny. So it is what it is. And I think the timing of my speaking tour ended up being perfect because I didn't miss anything, with all due respect. I knew that a government was not going to be formed while I was away, that this was garbage time, to use a term from the NBA, and that they were going to wait for me, these politicians, to form a government when I came back. Or maybe not even then, we'll see. I did miss kind of a little operation going on with Gaza. That happened when I was still in Winnipeg and was still going on when I got home, but shortly after that it ended. Thank God, with the Israeli side not suffering any casualties beyond people lightly wounded, hurting themselves on the way to their shelters, and more power to the people of Israel that they obeyed the orders of the Homefront Command and stayed safe. For a while, though, what that showed us was that the people of Israel have a way of uniting, that whenever we have a security situation, which of course can start at any second, on any day, this is something that brings the people of Israel together. Suddenly, they can put aside their differences over what kind of government we should have, which political parties to support, what policies there should be, and everyone can unite behind just making sure that no one gets hurt, and that there are a minimum of casualties on both sides, while Israel's enemies are trying to maximize civilian deaths on both sides and succeeding only on their own. So America, though, they don't have this. They don't have this advantage that at any given point the security situation could break out. Now, of course, I don't wish that on them in any way, but because they don't have that security situation, that's what makes it be completely polarized with no end in sight. The red states will continue to hate the blue states. The blue states will continue to hate the red states. Everybody will continue to be jealous of the purple states. And even within those red states, there'll be plenty of people who don't like Donald Trump. And even within those blue states, there'll be plenty of people who are totally embarrassed by the behavior and the statements and the policies of their 20,000 candidates for president of the United States. That's what I saw in America. I saw America just as divided as ever, but Israel being something that continues to unite Americans. Perhaps the only thing that continues to unite Americans. I mean, maybe they united a little bit that when the Washington Nationals won the World Series. I'm sure there are people In Houston didn't like that very much, but the rest of the country, I thought they thought it was pretty cool. So that was maybe one thing. When you can have a sports event that can unite everybody but the losers. That's something that America can have. But to unite everyone, they haven't had some big event like that in a long time. In part because they take things for granted. When they win a medal, who cares? They won another medal. When they win a Nobel Prize, find another Nobel Prize. Here in Israel, when we win a medal, wow! The people of Israel get so excited. We've got the baseball team of Israel that's going to be competing in the Olympics. Now, I don't think we'll win a medal, but we're competing in the Olympics in baseball. Wow. That's something that could unite all Israelis that have any idea what baseball is. When we win a Nobel Prize, that's amazing. That's something that totally unites Israelis. That's something that we take so much pride in. That's such a big deal. There have been plenty of other events. When we won the Eurovision Song Contest, that was very exciting for Israelis. When we try to land a plane on the moon, or a spaceship, I guess it was, that's also very exciting. That's another thing that unites Israelis. And we did land on the moon very, very fast. But we did land on the moon. We are the 4th country in the world to land on the moon after America, Russia, China, and then us. Little Israel, nowhere near as big as China. And we did it, sort of. I just loved seeing how much people care about Israel in America. And you know what was even more special for me personally? I liked seeing the way people care in America about Israeli politics. That's right. I mentioned security in my talks, never at the beginning. They knew they were coming to a talk about Israeli politics. That what happened in Gaza happened an hour after my last talk in Canada ended. So I had very, very impressive crowds all over the place. Adith Israel in Marion Station, Pennsylvania. Huge crowd there from the men's club. Santa Barbara on that Sunday in Neighborhood congregation. Such a huge crowd. A very impressive crowd in Agoura Hills. These people came because they wanted to know what was going on with the political situation in Israel. And, I've had people at the Jerusalem Post tell me, they care about security. That's what they click on. They care about peace process if there ever would be one. That's what they like to click on. They used to think that they don't click on health articles. That's been proven completely false. The articles about Israelis curing cancer have been by far the most clicked on articles in the Jerusalem Post. And said, okay, Israeli politics, they don't click on that so much. And you know what? Not true. They've been clicking and clicking and clicking around the world to find out what's going on in Israeli politics. They know that the Jerusalem Post is the source. And the fact that I could speak all over America, 33 lectures in Canada, and people care to come out, it was absolutely beautiful for me to see. So what's going on in Israeli politics? I will tell you momentarily after this word from our sponsors here on the Land of Israel Network.
The question is, why are the Jews there in the first place? The Jewish people have been yearning to return to their ancient homeland for a long time.
The Yishai Fleischer Show, the voice of a new generation of pro-Israel activists.
And there's only two kinds of minorities in the Middle East, armed or unarmed.
Inspiring minds to think differently.
That jihadism doesn't just attack Jews. It attacks Christians, and it mostly attacks Muslims.
Inspiration, spirituality, and politics.
So first and foremost, this country is here to defend Jewish people and to live in its ancestral homeland.
Listen to the Yishai Fleischer Show every week on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we're back here on Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network, on the landofisrael.com, where we are in the midst of the most exciting time in Israeli politics, when we are still trying to figure out what is going to happen. And the people around the world, as I mentioned, care about what's going to happen in Israeli politics, and that's why they go to the Jerusalem Post, and that's why they go to landofisrael.com. And so what is going on? Well, at this moment, when I am taping this show, Tuesday morning, Israel time, Avigdor Lieberman is arriving at the Prime Minister's office in order to meet with Netanyahu to speak about the formation of a government. Avigdor Lieberman, the kingmaker, the man who has in his power to enable the formation of any possible government or prevent it, is coming there, and he will be telling Netanyahu again, a unity government can and should be formed. And he will help facilitate that, even though it is not easy, because Lieberman yesterday did not succeed in persuading Benny Gantz to let Netanyahu go first in a rotation in the Prime Minister's office. If Gantz would agree to that, his party would break up. And Benny Gantz does not want to break up his party. And because of that, it could end up being that there could be a right-wing government. Avigdor Lieberman has gone to war against the ultra-Orthodox over the last year. At any given point, he could drop that war. His deadline is noon on Wednesday. It was supposed to be midnight tonight, Tuesday night, which would have been very not nice to print newspapers, which still exist. But he delayed it to Wednesday at noon, which would give Gantz 12 hours to announce that he has a government that's formable. So let's talk about these different possibilities that there are. Yesterday, Amit Segal, the top political analyst on Israeli television, on the Channel 12 news channel, said that the order of likelihood is the following. He said the most likely is an election, followed by a unity government, followed by a right-wing government, followed by a minority government, which means a left-wing government supported from the outside by a joint list of Arab parties, or just a few Arab Knesset members, who would not be joining the government because of their fears of collective responsibility for any decision made by that government to empower the IDF to take action against their cousins in Gaza. But they are willing to receive funding to improve the quality of life in their sector. So those are the four possibilities. So Segal said elections first. I'm telling you, elections last. I've been saying it all along from day one. We will not be going to elections. The people of Israel will not tolerate it. And the reason why we went to an election the second time was no one thought it was going to happen. And because no one thought it was going to happen, they let it happen by accident. This time everybody knows it can happen. And that's why they will make sure it won't happen. And so different possibilities. I say most likely is still a unity government, followed by a left-wing minority government, followed by a right-wing government, all three being possible. If I could say the fourth one being nothing, that's not possible, but the fifth being elections, it's not going to happen. So let's talk about the possibilities going upward. So I said a right-wing government third. Maybe it's become more likely in the last day or two. This means Avigdor Lieberman giving up everything he has said over the last few months about how the ultra-Orthodox are the problem and we can't give in to them on anything, and giving in. He could still give in to them and enable the formation of a government that would be the most homogenous government that we've had, only right-wing parties. The 55 in Netanyahu's current bloc of right-wing parties and religious parties, together with the 8 members of Knesset from Lieberman's Yisrael Beitenu. That can still happen. There's one idea floated today that on matters of religion and state, the ultra-Orthodox would still get pretty much everything, except that there'd be some formula on drafting yeshiva students. What they would give up is the finance committee that's very powerful in the Knesset, the health and interior ministries that they've controlled for so long would go over to Lieberman's party, and then he can say, I have accomplishments. He wouldn't get all the other matters of religion and state that he wanted to get, but taking the ultra-Orthodox out of the Ministry of Interior and out of the Finance Committee, those powerful positions, would definitely be something that Lieberman can use to claim victory. It's definitely an idea. And so Lieberman and Netanyahu are talking about that right now, apparently, at the Prime Minister's office, and this can indeed lead to a right-wing government being formed anytime after Wednesday night at midnight, when Benny Gantz's mandate to form a government exclusively will expire. And so the only government it looks like at the moment that Gantz can form is that minority left-wing government, where you would have Benny Gantz's blue and white, 33 seats, together with the Labor Party's 6 seats with Gesher, the 5 seats of the Democratic Union that includes Meretz, the left-wing party. Okay, so that brings us up to 44, and Lieberman would bring us up to 52, and then there would have to be, at times, 9 Knesset members from the joint list supporting the government, for instance, on passing a state budget. That requires 61, but most things just require a majority. And Netanyahu would remain with his 55. So all you need is 4 Knesset members from the Arab joint list out of the 13 to cooperate with whatever the government would do in return for all that money for their sector. That remains a possibility because Yair Lapid, it's the only thing he'd let happen. If Gantz would give in to the proposal by the president, which has Netanyahu going first as prime minister, that is a possibility, but it's also possible that maybe Gabi Ashkenazi, who's number 3 and very powerful in the party, would enable that to happen. Moshe Bogi alone detests Netanyahu with a passion, but maybe would facilitate that compromise and just wouldn't agree to serve under Netanyahu. But Lapid, by any circumstances, would not agree to join such a government. The only government he would agree to join is that left-wing government, even though he does not like the Arab Knesset members anyway, and it takes pains to say he's centrist and not left-wing. He would facilitate only the creation of a left-wing government at this point because he detests Netanyahu so much and believes Israel needs clean leadership. And on Sunday, Monday, we're going to find out if Netanyahu is clean leadership when the Attorney General is going to be issuing his final ruling to indict the Prime Minister or not indict him. We'll see. So that last possibility, yes, I still say the most likely possibility is a unity government of blue and white and Likud. It perhaps would become easier if there isn't an indictment, or if there is an indictment, because if there isn't an indictment, then maybe there would be less pressure not to join that government for blue and white. And if there is an indictment, maybe there'll be pressure on Likud to come up with a different kind of leader who would then be able to go first as prime minister. That blue and white would agree to, and then Gantz would go second, and everybody could be happy except for Netanyahu. I don't know how they'd have to make some kind of snap election in Likud, but they can do it. It is still possible. All of these scenarios are preferable to going to an election. I'll give you one more possibility. It's kind of technical and weird, but could happen. By law, Gantz does not have to form a government by Wednesday night at midnight. He just has to say that he's formed a government by Wednesday night at midnight. All he has to do is say the words in Hebrew to President Rivlin, Allah biyadi la'akim mimshalah. It came to my hands to form a government. Now, he doesn't necessarily even have to say what government that is. But at any given point, over the next 7 days, Yuli Edelstein, the Speaker of the Knesset, could bring that government to a vote. He can, after midnight Wednesday night, though that's especially rude, I don't think he will, But the Thursday morning could say, okay, Gantz, we're going to a vote now. Then again, Yuli Edelstein is not rude. He could very well let Gantz have until the following Wednesday. And what does that do? It delays the formation of a government until after Mandelblatt's ruling, assuming the reports are true, that he will be issuing his decision on Netanyahu's indictment by Sunday or Monday. And then we will finally know, did Netanyahu commit bribery or not, which is what can facilitate forming that government. And then if it happens Sunday morning, well, between Sunday morning and Wednesday at 11:59 p.m., that is plenty of time for a unity government to be formed, even if it would be with the tacit understanding on that Wednesday night before that the reason why Gantz said, I came to my hands to form a government, is to form a minority government. He can forget about the Arab Knesset members right after a Netanyahu indictment and then form a government with Likud. He can definitely still do that. All of those ideas are out there. Now, that last scenario is quite unlikely because Yuli Edelstein is from the Likud and he's not going to overtly take action against Netanyahu. And because of that, it looks like there will not be a chance for Benny Gantz to be able to form a government after the Attorney General issues his ruling, except if it's really, really bad. I know that Gantz wanted to wait. He was really hoping that the Attorney General would make his decision during this exclusive time that he has now to form a government by Wednesday at midnight, and it's not happening. The Attorney General will not be making his decision by tomorrow. The Attorney General did not want to overthrow the Prime Minister. But a few days after that, during the 21 days when any Knesset member could form a government, then he's not being unfair. Then it would be okay. Announcing that ruling this Sunday is totally normal and acceptable and healthy for the Prime Minister. Now, of course, for the Attorney General. Now, of course, if there is no success in anyone forming a government during those 3 weeks, then we will automatically go to elections. Actually, there is one more thing. During those 3 weeks, let's say the last day, December 11th, then somebody submits 61 signatures of Knesset members saying they want this person to form a government, then they get 2 more weeks to do it, which would take us from December 11th to December 25th, which is funny because the Netanyahu's first step to initiate elections last year was on December 24th. So we would get to a full year. Or we could not have a government. If nobody forms a government during those 3 weeks at all, or during the 2 weeks after that, somebody tries to form a government and then fails, then we get within 90 days, the last Tuesday within 90 days, we have our election. So if it is not with those extra 2 weeks, then that last Tuesday within 90 days, as we have said on our show before, would fall on Purim, which is very fitting because a farce is a farce is a farce. And I was in America the beginning of November, and for some reason at the beginning of November, the costume shops have clearance sales. The Trump costumes were on sale. Not a bad time to buy those Trump masks for our Knesset members here in Israel that they could wear on Purim on Election Day. Maybe that'll get them some votes. You never know. So that is all the excitement that is going on right now in Israeli politics. It's dizzying, but you know what? It is not as big a problem as there is in England, and it is not as big a problem as there is in America. People in Canada are very happy their election's already over, but it's so cold over there. So I like Israel. I'm glad I live here. I'm glad that I cover politics over here. It's a pleasure doing this show, being back with you all over America, all over the world, all over Israel, the people listening to this show. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day from here in Jerusalem. Bye-bye.
The world, says Albert Einstein, is a dangerous place to live. Not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. And I say that one thing you can always do is tell the tale. So I'm Rav Mike Foyer, and this is The Jewish Story.
Join Rav Mike Foyer for the best Jewish history podcast, The Jewish Story, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.org.